Afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Trader Merlin Show for your Thursday afternoon edition, getting near the tail end of the week. Right before the holiday season, we get more excitement in the markets. We've got a bunch to talk about today, from equities to cryptos to government, and of course, whatever questions you guys decide to throw my way. So welcome, everyone. It seems like it's hot out there for a lot of you. Nice to hear in Southern California. Not quite the holiday or winter weather that we would expect out here, although I did get some winter weather in New York. So let's talk about the topics at hand, get into those real quick so I can wrap up maybe even early today. The topic I started with was, government shutdown. And this was really started because of a viewer question. It was from Thomas. He says, are you going to trade the markets, or how are you going to trade the markets if the government shuts down? Well, first off, I'm not going to trade them any differently. We've gone through this before. This is something that seems like it happens right around every 6 months, where the can just gets kicked down the road. We get a little bit of an extension and we'll fix it next time. Now, the question I have is this time going to be different? In the past, we've had it where it gets kicked down the road, but nothing really changes from a House or Senate perspective, meaning there's no new voting members. So what's to change? Fix the bill. This time it's very different because on January 20th, we know that Trump will be taking office. There'll be a lot of new people taking office as well. And I have this feeling that you may see things get stalled, and we could see a 1 month government shutdown until January 20th. And what does that mean? Well, first, I guess we have to look at I put the wrong name on here. I put budget deadline. It's really just a spending bill deadline. And I asked Midjourney to create an ISO graphic that had a deadline of December 21st. And this is what it came up with. I was like, okay, well, it's kind of a cool little graphic. But you had December 21st, which is going to be our deadline. That's Friday at midnight. So this Friday, if they don't come to an agreement on this spending package, which I have not looked into it, I just stopped caring about those types of things. My guess is it's going to continue to go on and on. This debate will go. And I have a picture of it. I like this one. This is from Twitter. It's over 1,500 page document, and I guess they've been given very little time to read through this. I can't imagine just signing a document with this many pages, having not a clear understanding. And what's crazy is I could read something like, you give me a small book that's maybe 100 pages, and I would still have a difficulty in 48 hours going through it and having a very clear understanding of where every single penny is going to go, right? That just seems like absurd that you should be able to read through 1,500 pages. And keep in mind, this is legal speak. This is not normal English that they're talking about. And what scares me, and I'm happy that we have some people like maybe Elon Musk out there who are saying, do not agree on anything right now. Don't sign this. This is insane. There is Retired Jim says, a nice light read. Yeah, absolutely. My worry is, and I've seen this in the past, I have not read this at all. I would never read it. But in looking at different people's social media sites, they will dig through and find things in these spending bills, these legal documents, these packages that you're just like, wow, how could you possibly vote that in? And I think that's my big concern with this, is that they're trying to push through a whole bunch of stuff by just flooding you with so much information that there's no way you can read through it all. Hopefully, we will get past this government shutdown. Now, do I think the government's going to shut down? Personally, I don't think they're going to shut down. I think they'll probably do a stopgap for 30 days or 60 days and reconvene in January after the new administration takes office, and then start from there. I don't know if you saw, this is Elon Musk's post, but he's really been hammering the table on this one. He says, what a scam about this legal document. But here's what I found interesting on Elon Musk. Let me see if I go back up here. He has just been going just so deep. Yesterday's bill and today's bill. So if you cut all that stuff out, that's what it should look like. I thought that was funny. But Musk is saying in here, God, he just tweets so much. It's crazy. I won't torture you guys with scrolling, but basically he said no bill should be passed under no circumstances until January 20th. And, he might have a lot of people that are listening to that one right now. So to the question from Thomas, I'm not going to trade it any differently. This doesn't really impact me at all. If we look at the areas of government which may get shut down, typically the ones that get shut, if there is a shutdown, are going to be, parks and zoos and libraries, of government libraries. Typically, Social Security payments will still be getting made. Medicare will still be getting made. You'll see things like the passport office might have shorter hours or close. Even TSA, they'll they will still be required to work because they're an essential job. So, this is just kind of getting old. It just seems like it happened over and over and over again. I think as an American, we would all agree, I don't think anyone here is going to disagree with me on this one, that we need to do something to curl our spending, cut our spending. But to put through a bill with that many pages, that much legal speak, that there's bad stuff getting put through there that should not be in there, that someone snuck in for some company, for some government, for some friend. And to me, I'm like, nah, not going to happen. Most of these markets were fairly slow, except crypto. Obviously, if you look at crypto today, it was just crazy the way they were moving. Big time movers. But market says there is no debt ceiling. There is a mythical debt ceiling. It always gets raised. It always gets raised. None of these governments, none of these politicians want to be the one that's standing in front of that freight train of public dissension when the system starts to fail on their watch, right? So they'll posture and say no, and they'll do something just to keep the spending going. But hopefully don't get through that 1,500 pages. I think it's just crazy, nuts. Now, second piece I want to get into. Well, there's a few different things I want to get into today. The government shutdown one is interesting. It's either going to shut down and stay shut down until January 20th because we can't agree on it, or they'll do a kick down the road. But this bill will not get passed through. I don't think this is going to get signed. This spending package is going to get signed at all. Hey, Jay, good to see you. Vivek put out a message about what was in there. Lots of pork. Yeah, exactly. Lots of fat. Lots of stuff that didn't need to be in there. And this is every single time. This is not just this bill, guys. Every spending package I've ever seen, when you peel back the pages, you dig into it and you're like, okay, well, this makes sense. This makes sense. And what in the hell is that for? Has nothing to do with anything in there, but someone tried to sneak it in. When you force people into a pressure situation, you've got to make a decision by Friday. You've got to make a decision. They're going to look through things quickly and maybe skim over it and not pay attention to the details. And I think that's what a lot of politicians count on, is that their counterparts may not notice these things. Hopefully we get more scrutiny. Ideally, this thing is all a digital document that they can run through an AI program and say, can you give me a TLDR on this? Can you just give me I want a one-page summary of where all the money's going, and keep an eye out for anything that doesn't look normal. We're getting to the point where those ChatGPT models can do things like that. Please bring it on. $2 million for clarifying molasses inspection process. Hey, you got to make sure that molasses is clean and safe there, Big Ep. I haven't gone through it, and I don't plan on it. I'm just going to kind of sit back and watch as this happens and see what gets brought up with this. But yeah, Liz says, I imagine AI comes in very handy in catching nonsense in the paper. Absolutely. And I'm sure it would also miss some things, but I'm a slow reader. I'm definitely a slow reader. Like to read a long book would take me quite some time. That document there would take me forever. And not only that, the legal speak would drive me absolutely crazy. So, all right, let's go into a couple other things. Some of you were mentioning this one yesterday, Micron Technologies. I'm moving on because, honestly, I think that this is just going to be a political posturing thing for the next month, maybe a month and a half. And it'll create a little bit of drama, but I don't think it's the end-all, be-all. Not that big a deal. The longer that it goes on, the more likely it's going to start to impact the economy. But my guess is this will be resolved within 60 days. If we do go to a shutdown, I think that'll be fixed when Trump takes office. Because I believe that the pressure now from the Republicans is going to be, let's not pass this. Let's make sure nothing goes through. And then as soon as we take office, then we'll make it all go through, make it better. And that's what I think the attitude is right now. But I could be wrong. So let's go into Micron earnings. They came out with earnings yesterday. After hours, I didn't get to bring this one up yesterday. I know some of you chatted about it in the room. Pretty big beat down here. And what was interesting is they actually beat earnings. They beat earnings by just a couple of cents here. You can see they were expected to make $1.75. They came out at $1.79. So they beat by 4 cents. All in all, seemed great. And this is why it's so crazy trading things like Micron or trading earnings announcements, because what happened here is earnings were fine, but their forecast was much lower than expected on pretty much all fronts. On revenue growth, all that was fairly negative for Micron Technology, and you saw it get beat down today. Now, I believe one of the numbers was they were looking for $9 billion next year, next quarter. I forget the breakdown, and they said we're going to have 7.7. So as a percentage, you're taking 1.3 off. What is that? Does that warrant a 20% slide? Well, if you look here on the chart, it had a pretty significant slide from yesterday's close. I mean, we're obviously down right now. I guess I could just use the down about 16%. A little over 16% on the day. At one point, we were down more than that. We're down at maximum about 18%. But, this is one of those points where I saw someone in chat just type in, I'm selling some puts on it. Yeah, this might be that type of opportunity. They're still growing. They're still a good company. They're still making money. They're just not doing it at the rate of expectations that the industry has. And sometimes I believe that the analysts get a little bit ahead of themselves. So today, of course, Micron was downgraded by a couple of big firms. That, of course, causes more panic. And all in all, for me, where's it falling into? It fell right into this area of demand. Well, I would really call it area of demand. It's just an area where it's just been kind of basing along back in September of this year. It also tapped it back in August. So that $86 mark is a pretty nice spot that I would be, fine selling puts on. I did not sell puts today. I was too focused on MicroStrategy and Super Microcomputer because I have a bunch in there, and I don't want to go too thin in my capital account. So I'm just kind of watching that one for now. We'll see what happens tomorrow with that one. But yeah, I think Micron might be a nice potential buy right here for the long haul. Of course, the long haul is the key one. I mean, just if you think about it, Micron was up at $160 back in June of this year, and here we are now at $86. That's a 50% haircut for a massive company that's in one of the hottest market segments, which is chips and semiconductors. So all in all, Steve sold the 85s. I think you're fine there. 85 is gonna be right down in that little bit right there, yeah. And hopefully you did it today. I hope you did it today, Steve, with that big panic moment, because you look at the volume on this one. You can tell every time they report earnings. It's kind of comical. If you look at their earnings, every time they report earnings, their volume spikes significantly. This is the second highest I see on the screen here was today. So big spike for their earnings announcement. You also had Nike report earnings. I do have puts on Nike. I had the $70 strike, so no worries there. They reported earnings, and I'll show you their numbers right now. Let's go to Nike, and they're soaring in the after hours. So they reported 78 cents. The expectations were 63 cents, and they just took off like a rocket. So those will expire worthless for me, which is fine because I collected some pretty nice premium on those Nike puts. Right now it's at 81, so it's up here where this blue line is. All in all, another good one. Vanara, you ask me every time to go over AMD. AMD hasn't changed. AMD is the same old shtick. I like AMD. I don't like the chart. And we talked about this as potential buy points, right? There were two, right? We talked about this buy point on August 5th, which is kind of this low point. That is 121.83. And then I mentioned the next point is going to be 116.82. That's this low point from back here in December of last year. Trend looks awful right now. So my bias is still short. Nothing I can say that's going to change from last week when you asked me about this one. The trend is still down. If you're going to take a shot at buying it, 116 is probably the spot I would go to. But right now, you're catching a falling knife. I would stay away from AMD for now just until this thing starts to prove that it's going to move back up. Right now, if you had to say which way is it going to go, it's easy. It's going down. It's going to keep on going down. Oh, 137? Ooh. Sell some calls on those. Sell some calls against those positions and collect some premium at least. Yeah, AMD is absolutely sucking right now. And I don't know the operations. I don't know the business well enough to make a statement as to what is causing it. I just know that from my experience in the markets, and I learned this one very, very early on, thank goodness, from some of the floor traders. They said, everything that is known or knowable is reflected in the stock's price. So somebody knows something out there. We can see their last earnings announcement. They were reported 92 cents. They were supposed to report 92.2. So they just barely missed. The previous quarter, they beat earnings. So they've been beating earnings, which seems fine. But now all of a sudden, they are just tanking share price-wise. So something fundamentally is wrong with AMD. I don't know what it is, but I can't speculate and try to catch that falling knife and smoke hopium and believe it's going to go up. I got to look at this one and go, I got to just stay short. 116 is where I believe it'll probably start to move up a little bit, but that doesn't mean this trend is over. It means a bounce up and then most likely continuing down. So until this starts to make a new pivot high, you got to stay bearish on AMD. I hate to say it. Let's see what else we have here. So I had MicroStrategy. Let's bring this one up. That was the MicroStrategy graphic there. Let's go to our next topic, which was the crypto fall. Now, if we look across the digital asset space today, it was a bloodbath. Now, things are bouncing a little bit now in the after-hour session, but you can see at the bottom of my watch list here, I've got there was a bunch more in double-digit losses. Now they're starting to bounce up a little bit, but you can see heavy single digits, right? 7s, 8s, 9s, 10% losses pretty much across the board. And then you look, and you've got Bitcoin is bouncing a little bit here, but it was a pretty significant sell-off, and I've been calling for this. I do think we were going to see a retracement in Bitcoin, just a little reprieve, a breather, and I mentioned 88,000. Now, on the spot price, it doesn't look like 88 is that big of a deal. You just kind of, I guess I could draw a zone in here. Let me get a zone drawn for you guys, make it easy. Is it going to be this little spot right in here? That's kind of my expectation, is that is your ultimate line in the sand. Now, there's also some smaller places that might bounce around 92, but if we got back down to that 88, I really wouldn't be that surprised. I do think it's going to have some move to the south side here and a little bit of a retracement, and that's okay, because the grand scheme of things is we've come from 50,000 to 100,000 in a very short window of time. It's due for a pullback. Big Eb says 88K for Bitcoin will tank MicroStrategy. Yeah, I know. I've got the 340 strike, so I'm kind of nervous about that one. They're expiring tomorrow, so we'll see how that one pans out for me on MicroStrategy. Yeah, MicroStrategy got crushed the last couple of days. It's funny because it doesn't even look that bad. It doesn't look that bad, but it is. So percentage-wise, MicroStrategy from peak, which was on Monday, to where we are today, you're talking a 25% slide in a week. We're currently in the after-hour session at 331. So I've got this 340 strikes right here. I'll leave that one on there. And I'm going to leave it. I'm going to leave it there. I know some people ask, like, what am I going to do with it? If I could put the 340 strikes, totally fine with it. I will sell the 340 calls until it's back above it. MicroStrategy could definitely take a big dip here. However, I do expect Bitcoin to sell off and then to rally back up. So I'm fine with it. I don't think that this is the moment where Bitcoin implodes and all of a sudden goes to zero. I don't think that that's going to happen. So it's just stressful for those that have been holding Bitcoin, and you're watching some pretty big evaporation of your accounts over the past couple of days. You look at that Bitcoin slide from its peak to its current price. Your Bitcoin spot price has fallen on 9.78% in the last 3 days. So yeah, it's definitely been a fairly rough slide, but there's others that have been done much worse. You look at things like Ripple actually is holding its own. Let's look at some other ones like Solana. Solana got hit pretty hard. In the last 3 days, Solana is down from its peak about 15%. But from its peak that was back in November, it's down 26%. So this is the nature of the beast with crypto. You get super excited and love it when things rip to the upside. It's awesome. But then you're going to have to deal with these kind of pullbacks as they happen. And there's quite a few that have had a aggressive sell-off over the past couple of days. And, how long does that go? How quick does it go? Does it stay there? Ethereum down 16%. What's causing it? Partially interest rates. I think partially interest rates and partially profit taking. Which leads me to another topic. Okay, hold on. I can see a bunch of chat here. Hold on. Let me read through some of these real quick. Sorry, I was. What has happened to Bitcoin this week? Retracement. I mean, a 10% week. Remember, we were having 10% days, so it's fine to have a 10% retracement. Let's see. I sold some SMCI puts. 105% implied vol is risky. Yep. Might sell some more tomorrow on another account. It's risky. I mean, you're taking big chances with both of these, MicroStrategy and SMCI, right? So this is in my risk account, not my 1% account. That's for sure. Amy soon needs to talk to her cousin. Let's see. Bought some render today. All right. Like I said, I've got a buddy who mines render, and I like render as a project. Been doing pretty good, but look at their slide. I mean, render is just, oh, man. We were up at $11, and now we're down at $7.31. It's like 36%. In the last 14 days. So pretty rough slide there for render, but as a project goes in the digital asset space, they're doing something, right? They've got some pretty good projects in the pipeline. They've got people utilizing render technology, so at least this has something, a utility to it, a value. When you look at other things like Shiba Inu, which doesn't do anything, yeah, great, tank, you suck. This is all hopes and dreams. Render is an actual business that's doing something. John said, I've got some 300 puts due to expire tomorrow. Okay. 300, you should be fine by tomorrow. I don't think it's going to get to 300 by tomorrow. That'd be pretty aggressive sell-up. I mean, it could happen. If you look at MicroStrategy going to that 300 strike, I do not think you'll be there tomorrow. I think things will slow down a little bit, but here's your 300 strike right there. Kind of the origin of that gap up as well. Okay, there's your 300 strike. I'll leave that one there for tomorrow. I'm kind of of the opinion that we're going to have a little bit of a relief move up tomorrow, but we'll see. I mean, the pain has been pretty aggressive. Yeah, been pretty aggressive. What else do I have here? Sold some Tesla 340 puts today. Is that expiring tomorrow? Yeah, the premium is great. I found what Sailor's average buy price is. Love to see that one, Margaret. Let me know what his average buy price is. Graper says, actually tried out Tau, BitSensor, AI apps. Oh, you did, huh? I tried. They didn't look like they worked very well at all, the stuff that I did. Do you think Tesla will hit? All right, let me go into one thing I wanted to get to real quick before I get sidetracked with all the comments and questions. So Chad's using this one. We analyzed this in the class the other day, which was Tau. It's called BitTensor. And you say other GPT models for images, voice, vision, over. Yeah, but they're not there, right? They're not. I've played with all of them, and all those models were pretty weak, especially the search engine ones. Like, oh, a whole new way of searching the web. It's like, this is like Netscape Navigator from 1988. I mean, it was just basic and nothing of value there, not to warrant Tau's value at $500 per token or per coin. Did not work for me at all. So let me go into this piece. I'm going to stay on this crypto part for a second because it's a great question from Michael. Michael G, thank you for the questions you sent in. He says, in a recent interview with Michael Saylor, he discusses how and where he buys Bitcoin. He said something about TWAP algorithm off Coinbase. What the hell is that? So let's talk about TWAP. Okay, so for some of you, you know what a VWAP is. It's volume weighted average price. So VWAP is an indicator you can put on your chart, and it kind of tells you where most of the volume took place on a specific traded item. A time weighted average price, or a TWAP, is very different. So when you have someone like Michael Saylor who's going out there and saying, I want to buy 50,000 of Bitcoin or whatever it might be, you got to know that when you go to buy those items in bulk like that, if I was to do a market order and buy 50,000 Bitcoin, my God, I'd send it to the moon, right? It would go absolutely insane. So what they do is they use something, it's called a slicer on most commercial platforms. If you're an institution, it's called a slicer. And what a slicer does, it asks you two questions. Three. It says, how much do you want to buy or sell? How long do you want to buy or sell? And what time frames do you want, right? So for example, if I said I want to buy 10 Bitcoin, actually, let's just do it this way. I want to buy 24 Bitcoin, and I want to buy 1 an hour. I know that this slicer will take that up and do equal slices, 1 Bitcoin every hour for 24 hours, and we'll slice it up over the course of one day. That way, I'm buying 1 at a time as opposed to buying 24 at once, which could create a lot of movement. So in essence, what Michael Saylor is using, which is a feature that I'm sure Coinbase has offered to him, it's not really an algorithm, it's just a slicer. Now, Saylor called it an algorithm. It's not an algorithm. It's just simply an order execution system. It looks like this. So let's say Michael Saylor wants to buy 50,000 Bitcoin, right? You guys can all see the spreadsheet there. So he puts that into the software, 50,000, or sorry, I did it wrong. Delete. He wants to buy 50,000 of the slicer. So there you go, 50,000. How many days? Let's say he wants to do this over the next 5 days, which is typically what he does. He does 5 to 7 days. So this tells me here how many per hour for the next 5 days. He'd buy 416 per hour, or 6.9 per minute. So when Michael Saylor gets these types of systems, he can do a couple different things. Number one, he's probably using this at multiple companies. And my guess is, he mentioned Coinbase in the interview, but my guess is he's also doing it at Kraken or some other firms, because to do all of this on one marketplace could be risky as well. Might be low liquidity, even though Coinbase is probably the most liquid Bitcoin pool in the United States, other than maybe Binance.us. So does Coinbase have limit orders? Yes, they do. Yep. If you use the advanced platform, you can have limit orders, absolutely. Now, the institutional platform, which I don't use, I don't have, I'm sure is slightly different. But in this case, this is all he was doing. It's what he says. I don't know if I necessarily buy this because, he did buy 50,000 Bitcoin over 5 days. If you bought 6.9 Bitcoin per minute, you're going to drive price up. And I'll give you a good example of it. And hopefully my Coinbase account is still logged in here. So give me just a second. All right. So here is Coinbase. All right, so this is the spot market, and as you can see right here, I saw Margaret ask, can you do limit orders? Yeah, you can see right here I've got limit, market, stop limit, right? So I can do this whatever type of order I want. Now, I don't have the power to do a slicer, which would break up my order into small little pieces here. I can't do that. But if I go to this depth chart here, that depth chart shows you how much you could buy without moving the market, or by moving the market. So right here, you can see where my cursor is. That's 5 Bitcoin. So if I bought 5 Bitcoin, I would move price currently up to 97,692. That's where I would move it to. So it would move it up about $50 per Bitcoin. Now, if that's every minute, so he's basically just going to market order every minute, which will just chomp away at a lot of the supply. And you can see up here, here's like 80 Bitcoin, here's more and more and more Bitcoin. So he certainly would have an impact on the price going up over time. That's why I think when you look at this slicer in a situation like this, he's splitting this by maybe 2 different exchanges. Or let's say he goes to 3 different exchanges, right? So let's go number of exchanges. And let's just say 3. All right, so he's on 3 different exchanges. That means this equals that divided by this number. That means that on each exchange he's buying 2.31 per minute. And that would get him to his 50,000 total for 5 days. So this is what he's saying in an interview. I just think the numbers are too large. When you go into the equity markets, I think it's a bit different. There's always massive liquidity, especially on the big stuff. With Bitcoin, there is some liquidity, but it's not that much. As I showed you the other day, here is, see if I can, based off this, you can see here he'd be doing 416 per hour if he had to buy 50,000 over 5 days, right? So there's your 416 per hour. Notice that if I bought 416, I would move price up to roughly $106,000 on Coinbase. That's why I have a problem here. I just don't believe that he's buying like this. Even I do believe it's automated. I do believe that that's a big factor what he's doing. But I'm hoping you guys can understand that if he's buying 416 an hour, that in 1 hour he theoretically should have driven Coinbase's price up to $106,000 in an hour, right? I think that's all clear. If you don't get that, let me know and I can explain it more. But this to me is just kind of scratch my head going, I don't know if this makes much sense from a execution perspective. And I'm someone who's used slicer orders. I've done this before. I know how these work. I don't know. Seems fishy. And I appreciate you sending in the link to the video, Michael. It is interesting. It could be a possibility as to how he's buying it. But I don't believe that it's... I don't believe it. Because he has also said that he has the private keys to his crypto. If he keeps him at Coinbase, he does not have keys to his crypto. We would see a private address. We would see an address that had Bitcoin moving into it. And that's being tracked by thousands of companies out there. Glassnode is one of the big ones. They track everyone's transactions. I haven't heard a thing from them about Michael Saylor buying all this Bitcoin. Where is it at? He's partnered with someone or something. That's I think the most logical one is to that he's using a partner or someone else. So 1 second, my screen is absolutely blowing up here from a Teams meeting that I was supposed to be in, and they will not leave me alone. So let me just get this out of here. All right, they're gone. He's probably buying through an investment bank. That would be my guess as well, Margaret. But again, which investment bank holds that much Bitcoin? That's really the big question: is who's got that much? I just can't. I can't see it. They are brokering a private deal to purchase Bitcoin, right? And that's your dealer desk, right? That's your public dealer or private dealer desk. I don't know. I just have a hard time thinking that anybody in their right mind, knowing that someone is coming to you to buy 50,000 Bitcoin or even 10,000 Bitcoin, I'm not selling it to you at current market price. I'm elevating that price significantly. So good luck buying it from me. Of course, I don't have that much. Here's another piece to add to this. Michael, thank you very much. BlackRock does, but at least it says, I don't think that they're selling. Right, but what could they be doing? Oops. They could be ledger entering, right? So BlackRock's got, what, 600,000 Bitcoin now because of IBIT? BlackRock could do what I was mentioning with Fidelity, which is simply say, or Coinbase. They could simply say, yes, Michael, we'll give you 50,000 at this price. Boom, your deal is done. Wipe our hands of it. But he didn't make any real transactions. It's just a ledger entry moving over on part of BlackRock. I'll never know. We'll never know unless you actually work at BlackRock or you get some investigation into the actual allocations at these institutional firms. We'll never actually know. And to be fair, this is what was happening at Celsius, Voyager, BlockFi, Three Arrows Capital, all of which are bankrupt now, was this lending out of assets to different customers. And when Terra Luna imploded, it caught everybody off guard. The whole system went down. And MicroStrategy could potentially be that. I don't think it is, honestly, but the spectrum is kind of ticking up here a little bit. I hope not, but we'll see. So the next question, which is a great one as well, was he was talking about the new accounting rules. So he said in that video, also discussed the new accounting regarding unrealized gains now appearing as GAAP earnings. What impact will it have on stock, if any? So basically what they're talking about is fair value reporting. Currently, companies are not allowed to mark their gains on an investment if they haven't sold that investment yet. So it doesn't give your financials the benefit of those assets. You can write off the losses, right? You can mark down losing stuff, but not the gainers. Starting in January 1st, particularly with crypto assets, Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, it's mark to market, which is, one of the reasons that you want to have trader status is because you can do mark to market. It's better for you. So MicroStrategy will now be able to mark to market, meaning quarterly, they can say, we have this much gain in this asset. And that will help their financials, their books, their numbers look a lot more appealing to outside investors. And, one of the things that's been, problematic and caused some apprehension by other financial firms to get involved with crypto is because it's an asset, but I can't mark out those gains. I can only go for those losses. So Nike's tanking? I don't think Nike's tanking. Wow, it is. Great. Well, we'll see what happens there. So this should be a real good thing for MicroStrategy because now it will be reflected in their financials, the actual assets they own and the gains. So they have to report their holdings, but they can't claim those as gains, as profits. Now they can. And I think that will be a very different model for crypto firms going forward. I think it's going to be a big benefit for crypto firms. So who's going to benefit the most? MicroStrategy, Riot Blockchain, Marathon, Hut 8, anybody's holding Bitcoin because now those will be part of their mark-to-market accounting, and that will be a win-win for them, at least would be my opinion. So let's go back and look at Nike. We were just talking about how Nike was doing so good in the after hours. Man, you're right. Their guidance must have just been atrocious. Here is Nike 5 minutes. Let's go to the extended hours trading. Wow. Talk about an about face. So I have the $70 strike, so I'm not worried. I'm happy to own Nike at $70, but yeah, they must have said something that was very, very not good. I don't know what happened there. Man, that is a pretty significant swing. Let's map out what that fall was from its peak to where it's at right now. It is a 13% move in the last, 40 minutes? Man, yowzas. FedEx as well. All right, so they were supposed to come out at $4. They came out at $4.05. They beat by a nickel. Not too shabby. Not too shabby. Would there be an auditor that would verify the purchase of Bitcoin and MicroStrategy? John, that's a great question. In my mind, there has to be, especially, we're not talking like you bought $100,000 worth. I'd be okay with $100,000 sliding through the cracks if there was some shady thing going on. We're talking billions, right? This is big time math. So I don't know if there's any regulatory requirement. What they do have to do is they have to file their purchases with the SEC. So they are above board about it. Michael Saylor says all the time, we filed our agreements. I'm sure that people are looking at those statements as well. I have not dug into those. Maybe I should. Maybe it'll answer all my questions and my confusion about how they're getting it. But yeah, they do have to report all of it. No more child labor for now. Okay, so, we have this perception of things around the world. You just threw a curveball at me, which I'm going to roll with it. So I went to Thailand many times, and everybody was like, how could you? How could you do, sweatshop labor and children working, yada, yada, yada. I was like, well, I'm not for children working. Actually, I am for children working. I worked when I was a kid, and not in a... I was forced to. It was by choice, and I just knew the importance of working and making money, so I was put to work pretty early. When I went to Thailand, I got some custom clothes done, which I'm too fat to fit in now, but I need to go back so I can get more clothes. Back then, for some of you who wear nice suits, think of how much would you say a nice three-piece suit costs? Jacket, vest, and pants. Just one at a nice brand here. How much are you talking? We got some people here who wear nice suits on a regular basis, right? What do you think? Well, I'll wait for you to type that one in. I'll tell you the package deal I've worked, and I've used it 4 times, and I'm probably going to, next time I go back, try it again. I get 2 3-piece suits, so jacket, vest, and pants. I get 12 pairs of slacks and 12 French cuff shirts. All of that, I do custom everything. Custom liners, custom buttons, custom cuffs. They're all French cuffs. I get that whole package for $1,500 for the whole thing. Now, a lot of men here who are executives are going, what? Are you kidding me? I'm going to Thailand. So because I had so many people tell me, sweatshops and child labor, I asked them, I said, I want to go to where they're making where they're making our suits. The guy says, no problem. It took me to the factory. I walked in the factory. I got a chance to walk through the factory. Now, was it a sweatshop? Absolutely, it was a sweatshop. Were there children working? No. It was a sweatshop because this thing was like 95 degrees inside this building, and it was hot. It was. They had fans blowing, but people were watching TVs. They're all smoking cigarettes, and I was like, hey, wait a minute. Don't smoke cigarettes around my suit. I don't want that in my suit, but there we go. $1,300 for an Oliver suit? Maybe at TJ Maxx or something. I need a fake iPhone. You can get a lot of fake stuff down there, but I don't know if you can get a fake iPhone. Those of you who are in the business world that wear suits and things like that, I can't emphasize enough going to Thailand, going to Vietnam. It's worth the airfare. You spend $600 to fly to Thailand. You stay there for real cheap because it's inexpensive there, and you get all your clothing done day one, and then you move on and collect your clothing when you come back from the airport. I'll switch from that one. So Steve says, Merlin, I have been looking at these sector ETFs. Most of them are not looking good. Is that the precursor to further market sell-off or just an anomaly? I wouldn't say that it's an anomaly. I mean, typically when things start to slow down and people are getting concerned about where markets are going to go, those market segments will lead the way. So let me go and just look at the market segments here. We haven't done a show on sector rotation in quite some time. Maybe we can down the road. I'll bring on some other guests to do that one. But you look at your utilities. I mean, utilities have had a pretty significant drop. But remember, it was one of the prettiest charts we'd seen in a long time. That right there from October through September. A year of just hallelujah amazing for utilities. Now all of a sudden we see the correction. Okay, financials. Financials still holding strong. I think your XLF's going to close that gap right around 46, right? You have that big gap up that took off on November 5th. I see no reason why I wouldn't want to retrace that gap, but it's still overall in a big uptrend. So it looks bad on like the last couple weeks, but now just a retracement back to the mean. Technology still in a nice big uptrend, right? Yes, yesterday's candle looked awful. Doesn't matter. We're still in that big uptrend. The Dow. So the Dow's had a real interesting one. It's such a bizarre chart. You notice that it's like its biggest losing streak it's had in a long time. Today actually was up, so it broke the losing streak. This is one of the biggest losing streaks the Dow has had in quite some time. Today it ended it because we were up 0.07 on the Dow. But all in all, is it still an uptrend? I would argue yes. We just got a little bit extended. And this is why, you look at things like the moving averages or you look at Bollinger Bands, those will give you clues as to is something overbought or oversold. So let's go through on Bollinger Bands here for those of you who are technical analysis people. Bollinger Bands, right? And it's going to tell me, without me even looking at it, it's going to tell me most likely that the price of, this is the diamonds, was riding the upper band, getting overextended, and now all of a sudden it corrected, went all the way back through the median, and down broke the bottom. That most likely is a buy signal. Let's see if I'm right. Hope I'm right. Okay, well, it was pretty close. So we were riding that upper band here, not necessarily overbought, and then came screaming back down and broke out the bottom of that Bollinger Band. overall, it's still in an uptrend. So technically, if you're using Bollinger Bands, this is a buy signal. Now, I don't trade the Dow, so no big deal to me, but this is what typically happens. You get these ebbs and flows above and below an average line. Well, this is just the correction of it. So overall, I would say we are still in a nice uptrend here on the Dow, even though it's having a horrible losing streak right now. SPY. Well, S&P is right back into an area of demand. Perfect. Buy point. Still in an uptrend. Okay, industrials is a little weaker. This so far is the weakest one other than maybe, it's actually the weakest one. Why? Because we broke this swing low right here on the November 19th on XLI. Now we broke another one, which is more significant. This one's actually really significant, is the November 4th swing lows. So the fact that we're down below those two, that is actually a pretty bearish sign for industrials, and I do believe that industrials are one of the more broader measures of the economy. If we see industrials really start to slow down, then yes, I would actually agree with you on that this could be a precursor to more downside movement. Okay, now that's just on industrials. We're going to look at consumer discretionary, screaming uptrend. This is just due for a pullback, no big deal. Russell, okay, Russell also broke a pivot right here, but it isn't that significant in my opinion. Really more about this 218, 220 mark, which we are sitting at right now, I would say is more important. So that is fairly bearish, however, still in an overall uptrend. You've got to step back and look at the bigger picture. Triple Qs, same thing. It looks awful for 2 days, but when you put it in the big picture, fine, who cares? No big deal. Healthcare. All right, this one's definitely broken. Something's wrong here. Now, maybe this is, people worried about the new administration coming in and cracking down on price gouging for drugs and all that kind of stuff, but this chart looks real bad. For me, as kind of long-term perspective on this one, and someone who's looking to collect premium, this may actually get back on my radar as something I look to sell puts on. But I'm not going to do it until I get near a zone that I feel happy with, that I think might actually stall this one out. We have all these little tiny zones, but nothing here I think is really that significant. So, until you get down to 122, I'll just let this one keep falling. Trend is your friend, right? Energy. This one as well. I had this yellow box drawn in here a while back, but we're right back in it. So, for now, this is an ugly looking chart because it's not really trending as strong as any of the other indexes that we looked at, or the ETFs that we looked at. Really just kind of traversing sideways here and coming right into a demand zone. So if you're playing this might be a buy signal for energy as well, playing a bounce, not a trend reversal, just a bounce off this kind of sideways chop. What else do I have on here? Building materials. Okay, this one is right up there with industrials. Why? Because it broke multiple swing lows. This is that proverbial bug in search of a windshield. I don't think this thing's going to stop till it gets down to 82 or lower, maybe even 81. But right now, building materials looking horrible. The thing is, when you have a whole market segment like this that's down such a dramatic amount, at some point you've got to look at it for your long-term portfolio and go, maybe I'll sell some puts on it and collect premium, or maybe I'll just buy it outright and sell calls on it as it continues to fall. Because are building materials going to go away? Absolutely not. Are industrials going to go away? Hell no. It's all this cyclical cycle patterns here, and as long as you believe that the economy is still going to be growing, then at some point building materials will bounce, industrials will bounce, and I think that's what Steve's comment was, is if I see building materials and industrials tank like that, does that lead you to believe that there might be more of a market correction coming in? And I would say yes, but I need some of the other ones to start following suit. I need some of the other pieces to fall in place. But industrials certainly are a really important one, and they've been just tanking, not looking good at all. And last one, real estate. Wah, wah. Real estate plummeting. I mean, we've seen this not only break this pattern, but continue to just keep on falling. And since its peak in November of this year, which was a very short time ago, IYR is down 12.5%. That's pretty significant. You do have some unfilled gaps here, so I think that this one's going to continue to fall as well. Could the Big Seven just be carrying the equities? It's not could, Steve. It's not a question of could the Big Seven be carrying equities. The Big Seven are carrying equities. I saw some bar chart, by the way, has just got great charts that you should, I would follow them on X, which I think you should as well. They always put out just great charts that are just so interesting to look at. And they had one recently was saying something like 70% of the S&P 500 is below like their moving averages, which means that 30% are bringing it up, and most of it's the Magnificent Seven. right? So a bulk of the companies are suffering, but you have these few that are bringing it all up. This is why most of us are carrying tech in our portfolios. All right, let me wrap this one up for today. And Michael, thank you very much for both those questions on the YouTube channel. If you guys have something you want me to address on tomorrow, do me a favor, just email me or send it in at, or put it down below any of the YouTube videos. Let's go look at a couple different things that happened today. Bank rate votes. So you had the Bank of England, BOE. They kept rates right where they're at. I actually thought we would see them lower 25 basis points. So I was wrong on that one this week. For the U.S., our GDP numbers came out. Our final GDP numbers came out a little bit better than expected at 3.1%. So that was a really nice one to see. On the big picture here, we're still relatively low, but 3% is kind of a target that economists want us to be at, and we're at 3.1. So that's good. Let's keep that going. In my opinion, if we stay above 3%, then you'll see building materials and industrials peak back up. Existing home sales, much better than expected also. Went from 3.96 million to 4.15, so all's good there. For mañana, we do have some announcements. We have, for the U.S., the biggest piece of inflationary data for the week, and they're actually expecting inflation numbers to decline, which I thought was interesting given last week's PPI and CPI numbers. Right now, they're expecting it to drop from 0.3 to 0.2. We've spent the past two readings at 0.3. Of course, annualized, that'd be 3.6% inflation, higher than what the Fed wants. So right now, expectations are we're going to come out at 0.2 on this CPI number. That could be a very volatile one going into tomorrow's session. And then on the earnings front, I don't have anything exciting there. Nothing really noteworthy on the earnings front. We had the excitement here today. That's what it was about. The uptrend, have big 7Fs. Yeah, and I've mentioned this before on years past when we had, it wasn't the Magnificent Seven, it was the Four Horsemen, right? You had the Four Horsemen, now it's the Magnificent Seven. What happens, unfortunately, is you get these companies that have too much of a weighting on an index, and they just drag it up because they're just so powerful. And the concern is that if those companies should hit the skids or bad news happens, it could bring everything down. So let's go to NASDAQ 100 weightings. I always like this one. And you go to slickcharts.com. It's a great site for this. If you look at the Magnificent Seven here, well, Apple's almost 9% of the NASDAQ 100. Yeah, right. Yeah, that's right. We had the Four Horsemen, then we had FANG, and then we had the Magnificent Seven. Microsoft is almost 8%. NVIDIA is 7.5%. Broadcom, surprisingly, 6.6% of that index. Amazon is 5.6%. Tesla's 5.3%. Meta's 5%. Alphabet is 2.6%. So, you've got a huge weighting in that NASDAQ 100 is the Magnificent Seven. And that's a problem because if Apple should fall apart, which they're not. I mean, look at the chart of Apple here. Absolutely fantastic. As long as this keeps going up, markets are going to keep singing a great song. And bullish, bullish, bullish. But if they do have a big drop, something comes out about Apple, antitrust, whatever, it could face some big downside movements. Yeah, and you mentioned that dollar is relentless. Yeah, let's check out the dollar and the old Dixie. Especially the past couple of days, you've had that nice big break. And the question now becomes, where are we going to see this dollar index head to? Well, I'll zoom out here and go to a weekly time frame to make it a little easier to see. But, we broke out of some pretty significant areas. And now, if you're looking at the weekly, it's like 110 is your target. We're at 108 right now. That would be a significant upside move here for that dollar index. So, yeah, the dollar is certainly going to start to play some problems with our market. Buffett's heavy cash. A lot of these Magnificent Sevens are heavy cash, right? A lot of them are very, very heavy in cash. And that may create a buying frenzy. If the markets start to fall apart, maybe they save it. I don't know. It's just, there's so many dynamic pieces of the market. It's impossible to predict exactly what's going to go on. All I try to do is put those odds slightly in my favor and capitalize on them. That's a multi-year high for the dollar index. Yep. If you go back to the Dixie, yeah. So the last time we were at this price level was November of 2022. So it's been 2 years since we were at this level. So yeah, multi-year. That 10-year as well had a nice move up today. You can look at this chart here. I have these lines drawn. I guess I have to modify them or remove that upper line because we are no longer respecting that downtrend line from the peaks, which tells me that we're probably going to see this thing rally up here to about 4.7, and that could happen in a short window of time, especially with the dollar rallying. So exciting stuff, guys. All kinds of activity in our markets. Hopefully some of it's putting some green on your plate. We'll see how my trades end up tomorrow. Not that optimistic on a couple of them, but we'll see. My SMCI and my MicroStrategy could be put to me tomorrow. We'll see. I'll probably sell calls against them before the market even closes, knowing I might get exercised. So I'll let you know what happens on those on Friday, which is tomorrow. If you have something you want me to discuss on tomorrow's show, email me at tradermerlin@gmail.com or put it down below any of the YouTube videos as Michael G did with our questions today about TWAP, which is time-weighted average price, and also Michael Saylor's buying strategies, etc., and new tax rules coming into effect 2025. That said, thank you guys so much. Have a fantastic remainder of your day. I will see you all tomorrow.